What's up, everybody? I'm Rick,
And I'm Anna.
and welcome to our review of the 1933 movie Cavalcade. For those of you who don't know, this channel is a bucket list channel in which we try to realize the goals and dreams that are on our bucket list. One of those goals is to watch every movie that was nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Award from 1927 to 2028. Today, we're working towards that goal. Like I said, we just watched the movie Cavalcade. And so, yeah, we're gonna talk about it, review it. And the way this review is going to go, of course, is the same way they always go. First, we'll talk about the movie spoiler-free, for those of you who don't want to get spoiled but still want to hear our thoughts. Second part is going to be spoiler-filled. So we'll deep dive into certain elements of the movie that we want to talk about and spoil them. But don't worry, we will warn you before we get there.
And at the end?
At the very end, Anna, it's the ranking. So we've been ranking the movies for each Academy Award year. So we'll be ranking that one, which is actually the last movie of this year.
Right, it's the winner.
The winner.
Actually,
it is
for
the
Best
winner.
Picture of this year.
Mm-hmm. This is the 44th movie we've watched, and with this, we will have completed the 6th Academy Award year. And we'll be moving on to the 7th, which is 1934. We're done with this.
Slash thing.
Slash, exactly. But we've also did 2019, so this is the 7th year. We will have finished at the end of this video, which is exciting, isn't it?
It's exciting,
Yes.
right?
So yeah, we're moving towards the end of the goal slowly but surely. Anna, let's get right into this review with some information about the movie first. So, Cavalcade, it's a Fox Film Corporation movie that came out on April 15, 1933. It is based on the 1931 play of the same name by Noel Coward. Interesting name. It's directed by Frank Lloyd. Frank Lloyd?
Yeah, it sounds familiar, but I don't remember.
Frank Lloyd, director of Lane.
Okay, right.
Yes. And when I saw the name of the director, and after seeing the movie, I can definitely put these two together.
Yeah, these two movies.
The same person did both of these movies.
Yeah. Now that you told me, I can see it too.
And if you've seen our review of Lane, maybe you'll know what are some of the things that I'm going to be talking about in this review. This stars Diana Wynyard as Jane Marriott, Clive Brooke as Robert Marriott, who is...
Oh, I don't know. I didn't recognize him.
the Duck in Shanghai Express.
Oh, okay. I did not even recognize him.
Yeah. Una O'Connor as Ellen Bridge, Herbert Mundane as Alfred Bridge, Frank Lawton as Joe Marriott, and Ursula Jeans as Fanny Bridges. The movie was very popular amongst the moviegoers of the time. It was the second most popular movie in the US in 1933.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Got a good critical reception. We can see from the Academy Award, not only nomination but wins that it got. Got 4 nominations, won 3 awards.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So.
All right. So.
It won Best Picture. Yeah. It won Best Director for Frank Lloyd.
Okay.
Nominated for Best Actress Diana Wynyard as Jane Marriott, and Best Art Direction for William S. Darling, which it won. So the only one it didn't win was Best Actress out of the ones it was nominated in. Now, the film holds a 58% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, the review aggregating site. The site's consensus reads, "Though solidly acted and pleasant to look at, Cavalcade's lack cohesion and sacrifice true emotion for mawkishness." Mawkishness?
What is what?
Exaggerated, silly, or falsely emotional.
Okay, I see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, usually when I pull these critics, it's because they either go against what I thought of the movie or directly in the direction of what I thought of the movie, and I thought this is exactly what I was thinking throughout. Well, I'm gonna ask you first. Did you enjoy this movie?
I would say it was an interesting movie to watch. It was an interesting experience. I can't really say I enjoyed it in the sense that it didn't make me, feel the emotion of the movie, of the story, of the characters so much. It had a very interesting story, and I feel like it accomplished something that it was very difficult from what I've seen in other movies of the time, which was to encompass a story like spanning a long period of time in one movie. And I thought that it did that pretty well, but it did lack in feelings and emotions. Pretty much like the commentary said that you read. I kind of agree with that.
What I also agree with is the lack of cohesion that is mentioned in the consensus review. To me, this is or was one of the main problem with Islane. That it jumps around like so much and like there's no really like real cohesion. And here
I feel like maybe cohesion would not be the word that I would use if I were to make this critique. Is more like there's no link between certain events. It feels like it jumps from one thing to another and you don't really feel either the passage of time or the connection between those two.
You see the link because we follow the same group of characters,
right.
And of course we follow the same country. It's a story of the UK mainly, and so you see the links there, but it also feels so jumbled.
Yeah, it feels like this thing happens, then it's done, it's finished, like scene cut, and then you jump to the next scene.
A lot of time it felt like, oh, this is there because it needs to be there, or because, oh, that was something interesting to put in, like as part of the other events in their lives, but it doesn't really have any real emotional impact on the characters or any like. We'll talk about it more on the spoiler section, but a certain element in particular to me is very representative of what I'm saying. What about the performances? Because the review does say like a very well acted, and in that sense I thought it was. Everybody did a great job.
I felt like they did a good job at portraying their characters, the actors, I mean. With performances, I only had one issue. And it's not so much in the performances, like the actors themselves, but more like the way their characters were written, which was that at times I felt like their speech was not natural. And again, we'll talk more about this in the spoiler section, but especially at the end, like the whole ending scene, it didn't feel like something that people just say.
Yeah.
It felt like it was.
But I think at that point that was on purpose. It's more.
Yeah, but that one was the most obvious one. But I felt like that happened throughout the movie.
Because I saw that more as that ending scene a bit like in a play,
Yeah.
Where sometimes
it felt to me more like someone was reading the epilogue of a book.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. I did feel like most of the actors did their job well, but I can kind of see your point too.
And like I said, that's not in the actors' performances. I thought they were great. They
it's
were
more
really
of a script
convincing.
problem.
Yeah, it's more of the way the characters were built.
What do you think about the look of the movie?
I don't really have an opinion about it. I thought it looked fine.
It spans different location, different time periods.
It does,
which is
yes.
always interesting to see the details that they put like on the clothes, on the to show you that time passes.
I did like that a lot. That you could the decor was really interesting to watch and like full of details. You could tell.
Yeah.
There were a lot of elements in every scene.
Storytelling through the like surrounding areas, not only through the events or through the characters. We'll talk about the story more in our spoiler section, but you did mention one thing. It's very hard to make that kind of movie with so many events that feel more cohesive. Cimarron, I felt, did it well, and here I don't know. We talked about it when we reviewed Cimarron and Eastland because they were around the same time too. That like what exactly is the connective tissue that was missing and that was present there. To me, it might be the focus, And Cimarron, there, even though we jump around a lot, there was a focus on one or two characters.
Yeah, that is true. In this movie, I feel like at certain points we completely switch to other storyline.
Who's the main character here?
Yeah. But then it goes back and then it moves away again. It's like
Before we get into our spoiler section, Anna, would you recommend this movie?
I wouldn't not recommend it. If someone asked me, I thought I could watch this movie, should I? Sure, go for it. Would I recommend it? I don't know if I would recommend it. It's interesting. You know what? It has. I feel like it has historical value.
Yeah.
So for that reason, maybe I would say yes. But I feel like we've already watched so many movies from this period that there are so many others that I would recommend before this.
If you want some historical element, I think you can find better.
Yeah, exactly.
If not in a book and another movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't say, like, I think you can find a better movie to watch, especially because this one, well, it was like an hour and 45 minutes around that runtime, but it felt longer.
Oh yes, when it was done, I asked the question, how long was this movie? And when you told me it was not even 2 hours, I was surprised because it felt like it lasted so long.
It felt longer, and we've been watching, like, this year at the 6th Academy Award year, there was a lot of short movie, but when I say short, they were like an hour and a half.
Right.
And it always felt like, this is so short, this is already finished. This was only like 15 to 20 minutes longer, and it felt like an hour more. I wouldn't recommend it, but hey, if you want to go watch it, power to you. Now, Anna, let's move on to our spoiler section.
Spoiler section, yes.
So first, our synopsis of the movie. The movie is about the triumph and tragedies of two English families, the upper-crust Marriott and the working-class Bridges, from 1899 to 1933. So we span a good period of time here.
Right, it's more than 30 years that they cover.
Yeah, we follow two families. And so this is why I was saying, like, focus, because, okay, we span a long period of time, and a lot of movies do that, like through the life of someone, but that's what they do, through the life of someone.
Right.
You know? Here we follow two families, and at times some member of the families, not others, and then at times others, and at some point you begin to wonder, why should I even care about any of these characters?
And it's not even just like two families that mirror each other perfectly, or, you know, other than the fact that, okay, one of them are like upper class and the other one are a working class family, but in the way like their family relationship develops or anything like this, you know, there isn't really like a
there's not a mirror.
There's not a story to tell there, you know. It's just like, oh, what happens to like the rich people and what happens to the middle class people.
The middle class people who become rich.
Yeah.
And so it would have been interesting, if it was more of a mirror of both of their situation through the history of England.
Then at least that would have been the thing to follow, you know. But like, it's not even that. And then each family has several members, like more members, and sometimes the focus is on one of the members and not necessarily on the whole family, you know. So it's like,
and so one thing to also note about focus, when I was talking about both, I was talking about Titanic, because the movie follows like several important events in the UK's history, including the sinking of the Titanic, because one of the characters, who's the son of the Marriott mother, was on the boat and dies.
Right.
This character, even though we see him as a kid, sparsely, you know, he's in the background, he says a few words. Then we see him as an adult for two scenes. One scene in which he watches a boat and says, oh, I'd like to go on a boat, or his wife says that.
Right.
And then another scene in which him and his wife
are on the boat.
And then they zoom out, oh, Titanic.
Right.
And it felt like the only reason that whole thing existed is just to include Titanic in the movie, you know? Like
it felt a little bit like
drop there and then because I say that because the character was barely there before. He's there for those two scenes, him and his wife. The wife is also there when they're kids, you know, it's the girl they play with. And afterward, they barely talk about it. They don't show the reaction to his death. They don't show the death.
Right.
They were just like a year or two later, and they're like, "Oh, too bad your brother died," you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and that's part of what I was thinking when I said that it felt like it lacked emotion on like in different moments in time. Because for me, the way I saw it, and that's before you read me the synopsis, and I didn't even realize that the focus was supposed to be on both families. I thought that the main characters that we were supposed to follow were the Marryots, like the rich family.
Yeah.
And out of them, my focus was on the mother. Because it felt like it's the story of this woman who, like, over these 30 years ends up, you know, she ends up losing both her sons in the end. But she also goes through these different periods of war and then, you know, other events that happen in the country that affect her life, right? And so I felt like when the son died, it was supposed to be about the mother, about the mother losing her son. But I didn't feel it from her at all.
Because they
didn't.
skip.
Yeah, exactly. They just skip away. I'm like, so then why? What is that? Like it felt like in a show, when you want to take out a character because of whatever reason, the actor left or something, and then you just write the death of the character somehow, like quickly in 15 minutes in a scene.
Episode 1 of season 5, and you're like, exactly. Oh yeah, too bad he died, huh?
Yeah, exactly. It felt like that. I was like, what was that?
No, totally. That's why, like, after that scene, because when his at the time girlfriend, they weren't married, was watching the boat and was saying, I'd love to go on a boat. I was like, oh, they're gonna do Titanic, aren't they?
Oh yeah, you did.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even think about it. It was like, okay, boats, whatever.
Because at that point, the movie had shown its color, and to me, it was beginning to feel more and more like just a series of vignettes about the history of the UK,
Right.
It's like, how is the Boer War? Here's the Victoria's death. Here is Titanic,
Yeah,
like, okay.
I see what you mean. But I see what you mean. It makes sense, but I still didn't think about it when I saw it.
And you want to think that, it would be interesting, like you said, to either show a mirror, like how these important events affect both families of different classes. And they kind of try to show that, but not really. And of course, they're not really that different in terms of class by the end of the movie.
Right.
But that was also the point that Ellen Bridges was trying to make. The times have changed. The time have changed. It's not as it used to be anymore. We're the new upper class now. But yeah, I'm getting away from my point, which was that all of these events, a lot of time felt like they were just thrown in because they exist and people know about these events, just to make you think like, oh, it's that event,
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what was the point of having that whole section about Queen Victoria's death?
Oh yeah, and it was so long.
Yeah, it had no effect on any of the characters. It
was an important historical event, but it didn't affect the story in any way. It was just there to be there.
Which is why I'm saying it's just there because it's an important historical event.
Right.
Even the Titanic sinking with the sun in it felt like it had no impact on any of the character and was just
even
there.
If it should have.
Yeah.
But they didn't write that into the story. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then years later, the mom is like, I'm so sad that I lost both my sons. I never felt that,
Yeah, exactly.
I felt it at the second son.
Yeah, at the second son, at least she had that reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Well, also because she finds out, we see the scene when she finds out about the son's death.
Yeah.
But then I feel like even that is kind of cancelled by the end.
Mm-hmm.
When she delivers that monologue, where her and her husband deliver that long speech about the country and how the times have changed and what a crazy life we've had together, and sometimes that's not something that a family who's lost both their sons would talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, didn't we have a great life?
And
yes.
Here is also, to me, maybe that wasn't the point of the movie. Of course, it wasn't the point of the movie, but it is a failure of the movie, in my opinion, in terms of having real characters, is that she herself was often against the war, not in terms of principle, I'm against what the empire is doing, but more in terms of I don't want to lose my husband, right. I don't want to lose my sons.
Right. And we shouldn't. I feel like she did have that feeling of we shouldn't be sending all of these people to war. Why?
To die, yeah, because her brother was also fighting.
Right.
It's that whole thing. But there is a lack of criticism towards any of these big events that are portrayed in the movie, even though it feels like she should have been the most critic of them. Like, for example, World War One, which starts at the beginning with both the son and the dad being like, oh, it's going to be over in 3 months, which was the thought at the time. And then it lasts for 4 years. And I thought, oh, they're going to have a change of mind, especially Joe, who was so happy to go to war. But no, after the 4 years, he's still very enthusiastic about the whole thing. And their long monologue at the end, they're praising the empire and all of this. Shouldn't you be more critics of...
Yeah, that's the main issue that I actually had with this movie, is that it felt a little bit like propaganda.
Mm.
It felt like we're showing this movie to show how great, our country is, the events that happened, that changed the world history and all of this.
Yeah.
It felt like it didn't have a message on... about how these things actually impact people's lives.
Mm-hmm. They do want to show you how harsh war can be with the death of the son, but simultaneously, when the dad came back from the Boer War and his son asked him years later, are you happy to go back? It's like, yeah, like, didn't you feel any type of, traumatic feeling linked to the fact that you were a soldier in the war and now you just want to go back without a second thought? And then when London is getting bombed, for example, and Fanny and Joe go on the rooftop to look at it and they're like, oh, this is magnificent.
Yeah.
There's a lack of connection with the reality of war.
Yeah, it's not magnificent, and I don't think that people who like live through these events would have thought of them as being magnificent. It doesn't feel realistic.
But there's never that wake-up call. Even after 4 years of war, nobody even says like, we shouldn't have gotten into this mess. It's been 4 years. No, they're all like, we win, we're the empire.
Yeah. I feel like after having this like spoiler conversation, I'm even more convinced that I do not want to recommend this movie.
Which was the question I was about to ask you. So, to close the conversation, you recommend this movie? No. Me neither. Let's move on to our ranking. So this is interesting because this is the winner. We weren't very enthusiastic about it in our conversation.
Really.
So let's see where it ranks in the list. So the current ranking, at number 9, The Private Life of Henry VIII. At number 8, A Farewell to Arms. At number 7, State Fair. At number 6, Smiling True. At number 5, Lady for a Day. Number 4, 42nd Street. Number 3, She Done Him Wrong. Number 2, Little Women. Number 1, I'm a Fugitive from a Chain Gang. So Anna, last time I asked you, so this time I'm gonna go first. I would put this movie, so actually, because I always think about the ranking as we watch or after the movie is over. And back then I was thinking, something like number 6. But now that I think back on it after this conversation, I'm thinking anywhere between 6 and 8. And Smiling True is better than this. So 7 or 8.
7 or 8?
Yeah.
Sorry. I was actually thinking 9.
9?
I feel like A Farewell to Arms is better than this movie.
A Farewell to Arms. I had issue with A Farewell to Arms too. But I guess it was more interesting.
The main issue that I had with this movie was that it lacked realism and emotion. And I feel like A Farewell to Arms had that. And on other levels, they kind of had the same issues with like how they were like jumping from one thing to another. They weren't as like coherent, the scenes altogether. But at least I feel like A Farewell to Arms had more of a message to tell, to give.
And more, you know what? It also had one thing that you can always latch on in any movie, which should often be the focus, is characters that you care about.
Right.
A Farewell to Arms, at least I care about, whatever happened to the wife or whatever happened to the main character or even secondary characters. But here, not at any point. I felt like at some moments I was in the camp of the mother, the Marriott mother, but often I was like, I don't care about any of you. So I guess, I could definitely see that at number 9.
Okay.
So that is its position. Our new ranking, a final ranking for the 6th Academy Award year, that is 1932/1933. So number 10, The Private Life of Henry VIII. Number 9, Cavalcade. Number 8, A Farewell to Arms. Number 7, State Fair. Number 6, Smiling True. Number 5, Lady for a Day. Number 4, 42nd Street. Number 3, She Done Him Wrong. Number 2, Little Women. And number 1, I Am a Fugitive from a Chain Gang. There it is.
Can we take a moment here to discuss about where we actually placed the winner of this year?
Yeah.
Like
so low.
But I can't. Like I couldn't. I could have like maybe put it 8. If we discussed about it and there were arguments, but I don't see it any higher than that, honestly.
I was gonna put it 8, but you convinced me. So 9 it is. And I feel like at the time they really liked those big epic in terms of proportion movies, like this spans many years, this is a history of because we've seen a few of these
Yeah.
already, and they always seems to be well received at the time. But rewatching them, often I find that they lack cohesiveness. Cimarron being the exception.
I feel like maybe it's a new genre, let's say, or subgenre. These kind of movies that, you know, follow the characters through like very long periods of times, sometimes their whole lives. So maybe they didn't quite know how to write that story yet, or they didn't have all the techniques, you know, like they were trying different stuff and it didn't quite work at first. Because things like this, like, oh, they should have focused on one element. I feel like there is a key element when you want to make a movie spanning a long period of time.
Yeah.
You need an element that you can follow throughout that whole movie.
And that doesn't mean that I can't make the movie that I wanted to make because I wanted it to encompass all these important events in the UK's history and show these different classes. You can still do that. You just have to have a true line. You have to have something, a connecting tissue through all of it. And here it felt like they were saying the connecting tissue is both those families. It was not.
Yeah,
because I don't know those characters.
Right.
But that's it. That's it, Anna, for our review and for this year. Another year done.
Yes. So how many so far? 7? Only 90. How many? 94 left? Yeah.
So almost done, right?
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, if you want to see us start the next Academy Award year, which will be 1934, I invite you to subscribe. Check out our other videos too. They're not all about movies. This is a bucket list channel, so we have a lot of other stuff.
So many stuff.
Yeah. Like this video if you did. Comment in the comment section below. Are we crazy with our ranking? Let us know. I'm curious to see, like, from people who love this movie, maybe what would they have to say. And yeah, have a nice day.
You're coming upstairs. What you're gonna do? You're coming right up here. Blast it, snow!
She was right. She was right. Time changes many things.